My name is Dorian Beckett, and until the winter of 1980, I was just another college student navigating the tides of youth, uncertainty, and ambition. I was in my final year at university, studying philosophy, a field that fascinated me but often left me with more questions than answers. I spent countless nights hunched over thick books, dissecting the words of great thinkers who had wrestled with the same existential dilemmas that tormented me. What was the purpose of our existence? What lay beyond death? Was there a divine force guiding us, or were we simply wandering through an indifferent universe? These questions consumed me, gnawed at me in quiet moments, and left me feeling like I was grasping at something just beyond my reach. I longed for clarity, for something real that could break through the endless cycles of speculation and debate. One evening, as I sat in the university library surrounded by books and half-drunk cups of coffee, my best friend Jared leaned across the table with an amused smile. "You need a break," he said. "All these books, all this thinking, it's driving you in circles. What you need is something real, something tangible." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "And where do you suggest I find this great revelation, Jared? In another book?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "In the mountains. Come with me to British Columbia. Let's go climbing. Get out of this dusty library and into the real world. Maybe nature has the answers you're looking for." At first, I dismissed the idea. It seemed absurd. How could a climb in the mountains provide answers to the questions that the greatest minds in history had struggled to solve? But that night, lying in bed, staring at the cracks in my ceiling, something in his words lingered. Maybe he was right. Maybe I'd been searching in the wrong place all along. A week later, we packed our gear and boarded a train toward the rugged, snow-covered peaks of British Columbia. As the train rattled along the tracks, the world outside turned from the familiar to the wild, towering pines, frozen rivers, and distant mountain ranges that seemed to whisper secrets older than time itself. Jared was practically buzzing with excitement, but I felt something deeper, something more profound stirring inside me. I couldn't quite name it, anticipation perhaps, or a strange sense of inevitability, like I was heading toward something that had been waiting for me all along. The moment we stepped off the train, the crisp mountain air hit me like a shock to the system. It was cleaner, sharper than anything I had ever breathed in the city. Every inhalation felt like a reset, as if the very essence of the mountains was seeping into my lungs, stripping away the layers of noise and confusion I had carried for so long. We hiked for miles, our boots crunching against the frozen earth, the towering peaks growing closer with each step. The deeper we went, the more I felt a strange sense of calm washing over me. There was something about the vastness of it all, the way the mountains stretched endlessly into the sky, the silence so deep it felt sacred, that made my endless questions seem smaller, less urgent. By the time we set up camp on the third night, I found myself staring into the fire, lost in thought. The flames flickered and danced, their light reflecting in Jared's eyes as he watched me with knowing amusement. "You're thinking again," he teased. I smirked. "Maybe. But it's different out here. It's quieter in my head." Jared leaned back, resting on his elbows. "That's what I was hoping for. Sometimes, the best way to find answers isn't to chase them. Sometimes you just have to be still enough for them to come to you." I let his words sink in, watching the embers rise into the black sky. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't drowning in questions. I wasn't tangled in the endless web of philosophy and logic. I was just here, present, and it felt right. Before we continue, I want to take a moment to say that if you're here, listening to this story, you're already part of something greater, a journey of seeking, of understanding, of connection. If this resonates with you, if you've ever felt lost in your own search for meaning, I invite you to join our community. Subscribe, give this video a like, and let's continue exploring the unknown together. You are not alone in this. That night, as I crawled into my sleeping bag, the cold biting at my face, I had no idea that my search for meaning was about to take a turn beyond anything I could have ever imagined. The morning of our fourth day in the mountains began like any other. A crisp, biting wind swept through our campsite as the sun peeked over the jagged peaks, painting the sky in streaks of gold and pink. I sat outside my tent, hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee, watching as the world slowly awakened around me. Jared emerged from his tent, stretching and yawning. "You ready for another day of enlightenment?" he teased, flashing me a grin. I chuckled, shaking my head. "I think you just like watching me struggle up these cliffs." "Hey, growth comes from struggle," he replied, winking as he began packing up our gear. The climb that day was supposed to be challenging but manageable. We had studied our route carefully the night before, making sure we were prepared for the terrain ahead. But what we hadn't prepared for was how quickly the mountains could turn against us. By midday, the first warning signs appeared. Small flurries of snow drifting through the air, a sharp drop in temperature. At first, we ignored it, pushing forward, believing we had time before the weather worsened. But within an hour, the sky had darkened. The gentle snowfall had turned into a blinding storm, and the wind howled through the cliffs like a vengeful spirit. I could barely see Jared ahead of me. The snow came down so thick and fast it felt like the entire mountain was swallowing us whole. My fingers, even inside my gloves, had gone numb, and every step felt heavier, as if the very ground beneath me was resisting. "We need to turn back," Jared shouted over the roar of the wind. I nodded, trying to retrace our steps, but the path had already disappeared beneath layers of snow. Then it happened. One moment, I was following Jared's footsteps. The next, my boot slipped on a patch of unseen ice. I barely had time to react before my body lurched forward, my balance gone. My hand scrambled for something, anything to hold on to, but the rock was slick, my gloves useless. I felt the snap before I heard it. My safety rope had snagged in a crevice, locking me in place. My heart pounded as I twisted, trying to free myself, but my fingers were too frozen to grip properly. Panic rose in my chest like wildfire. "Jared!" I shouted, but my voice was lost in the wind. He turned, his eyes widening when he saw me struggling. "Hold on, I'm coming to you." But before he could move, the rope gave way. I was falling. The world around me blurred into a swirl of white and darkness. My stomach twisted as I plummeted, my arms flailing. My breath caught somewhere between a scream and silence. Time stretched, seconds turning into eternities. I should have been terrified. I should have been screaming, begging for my life. But something strange happened. Instead of fear, a deep, inexplicable calm washed over me. The howling wind quieted. The cold that had burrowed into my bones vanished. For the first time in my life, I felt weightless, free. In that moment, something deep inside me whispered that this was not the end. Before I continue, I want to invite you to take part in something powerful. If you believe in miracles, if you believe in divine protection, type "Amen" in the comments right now. Let's fill this space with faith. And don't forget to share the city you're watching from. We want to send you blessings in our prayers. As I surrendered to the void, the last thing I remember was the sensation of falling. And then suddenly, nothing at all. Darkness. Silence. A vast, endless void. I had expected impact. The violent collision of my body against rock and ice. The unbearable pain of shattered bones. But instead there was nothing. No crash. No suffering. No sense of time or space. It was as if I had stepped beyond the boundaries of existence itself. Then a light appeared. At first it was distant, a faint glow in the abyss, but as I drifted, was I drifting? The light expanded, growing warmer, brighter, more alive. It wasn't like any light I had ever seen before. It didn't blind or burn. It wrapped around me, through me, filling every fiber of my being with a love so profound, so absolute, that for a moment, I forgot who I had been. I was no longer Dorian Beckett, the philosophy student searching for answers. I was something more, something beyond name or identity. As I moved closer, though there was no movement as I once understood it, the light pulsed with an intelligence, a presence. I felt it rather than saw it. It was not a mere glow, but a living, breathing force. It knew me. Not just the version of me that had walked the earth, but every thought I had ever had, every fear I had carried, every moment of joy I had experienced. I wasn't being judged. I wasn't being weighed on some celestial scale to determine my worth. No, the presence that enveloped me was nothing but love. Pure, overwhelming love. Memories surged through me, but they weren't just flashes of my own life. They were connected, interwoven with the lives of others, with moments I had never noticed, with impacts I had never realized I had made. I saw myself as a child holding the hand of a stranger who had dropped their groceries. That single touch, that one act of kindness had rippled outward, affecting lives in ways I could never have imagined. I saw the pain I had caused others, not as a punishment, but as a deep understanding. I felt what they felt. Every sharp word, every moment of selfishness, every time I had turned away when I could have reached out, it all returned to me, not in condemnation, but as revelation. I had spent years searching for meaning, for the great truths of existence, and yet, here in this place, the answer was so simple, so clear, it was almost laughable. It was love. Love was the thread that connected everything. It was the reason the stars burned, the force that kept the universe in motion. It was not a mere emotion, not just something to be given or received. It was the very fabric of existence itself. I wanted to stay. I wanted to dissolve into that love, to merge with it completely. But then a voice, not spoken but felt, echoed through my soul. You are not finished. I didn't understand. Finished with what? Hadn't I reached the end? The light pulsed again, and in its brilliance I caught glimpses of something beyond, something vast, a reality more immense and intricate than I had ever conceived, a universe teeming with life, with dimensions stacked upon dimensions, with beauty beyond human comprehension. A choice was being presented to me, though I could not yet grasp its full meaning. Before I continue, I want to take a moment to invite you to be part of this journey with me. If you've ever felt a longing for something greater, if you believe in the unseen, in the mysteries that surround us, join our community. Subscribe, give this video a like, and let's continue exploring these incredible revelations together. We are not alone in this. And then, just as I felt myself surrendering to the infinite, something pulled at me, drawing me back. The light remained, but a new sensation began to emerge, one I had not expected. Weight, gravity, a body. I was returning. I was still weightless, suspended in the embrace of the divine light, but something was shifting. A presence was drawing closer, vast, incomprehensible, yet deeply familiar. It wasn't an entity I could see with my eyes, but one I could feel with every fiber of my being. It pulsed with power, radiating a love so profound that I wanted to weep, though I had no body with which to cry. A voice, not spoken, but imprinted directly into my soul, called me by name. Dorian. It wasn't the way my name sounded in the physical world. It was something deeper, something truer, as if I was hearing my name in the way it had always existed, before time, before memory. You have sought truth, the voice continued, and now you shall receive it. At that moment, the light around me expanded, and I was no longer just Dorian Beckett, the man who had fallen from the mountain. I was beyond time, beyond identity. And in this vastness, I saw the fabric of existence itself, woven together by a force greater than anything I had ever imagined. It was not distant, not a cold cosmic law that governed reality from afar. It was alive, breathing, moving through all things. Every star, every planet, every heartbeat was an extension of it. Then images flooded my consciousness, not in sequence, but all at once. I saw the birth of the universe, not as a random explosion, but as an intentional act of pure love. I witnessed civilizations rise and fall, the ceaseless dance of life across galaxies. I saw humanity, not as isolated beings, but as threads in a magnificent, intricate design, each life touching another, each action sending ripples through eternity. And then I understood. The greatest illusion of all was separation. We had never been alone. We had never been forsaken. The divine had always been with us, moving through us, breathing in our laughter and our tears. Every prayer whispered in the dead of night, every cry for help, every silent hope, it had all been heard. Nothing had ever been lost. I wanted to stay in that truth forever. I wanted to dissolve into it, to let go of everything I had ever been and become part of the infinite. But then, something held me back. A thought. A memory. Jared, the people I loved, the world I had left behind. A gentle sadness passed through me, and the presence around me responded, as if it understood my longing. Before I continue, I want to invite you into this moment of faith with me. If you believe in divine love, if you trust that God is always with us, type Amen in the comments. Let's fill this space with faith, and let us know where you are watching from. We want to send you blessings in our prayers. The light pulsed again, and I knew my journey was not over. I had been shown these things for a reason. I had to go back. The realization that I had to return settled over me like a weight, yet I did not feel fear. Instead, there was a quiet knowing, a certainty that my time in this place, this infinite, boundless love, was not meant to be permanent. Not yet. The divine presence which had surrounded me with such overwhelming peace seemed to shift, as if drawing closer, as if preparing me for what came next. I felt no pressure, no command, only an offering. You have seen, you have understood. Now, you must choose. A choice. It was then that I became aware of two distinct paths before me. One was surrender, to remain in this radiant existence, to become one with the love I had experienced, to let go of the body, of the world I had known. If I chose this, there would be no pain, no suffering, only an eternal presence in the embrace of the divine. The other was return, to my body, to my life, to a world filled with struggle, loss, and uncertainty, but also a world where love could be expressed, where the lessons I had learned here could be lived and shared. The idea of staying was tempting. Who would choose to return to pain after experiencing something so perfect, so whole? And yet, as I pondered, I felt something stir within me, a deep, undeniable knowing that my journey wasn't complete. I saw faces, Jared's, my mother's, people I had never even met. I felt their grief, their questions, their longing for answers they didn't even know how to ask. I understood in a way I never had before that my return was not just for me. It was for them. The divine presence around me did not push, did not persuade. It only waited, full of patience and understanding. Your life is a thread in a greater design. Your return will not be easy, but you will not walk alone. I breathed, not in the way I had in my body, but in my soul. I knew what I had to do. I turned toward the path that led back. As soon as my choice was made, the warmth of the divine light began to shift. The vastness I had melted into started to recede, pulling away like the tide. The boundless love remained, but something else emerged, a sensation I had almost forgotten. Weight, gravity. The limitations of the physical world called to me, and for the first time, I felt hesitation. How could I possibly carry all of this knowledge, all of this love back with me? How could I live with the memory of this place when I returned to a world that had no words for what I had seen? Before I could question further, I felt myself being drawn downward, back into something solid, something familiar yet foreign. The warmth of the divine presence remained, but now it was distant, as though I were being wrapped back into the fragile cocoon of my human form. Then, the pain returned, and with it, consciousness. Agony. A sharp, searing pain that ripped through every nerve in my body. I gasped, my lungs burning as they pulled in the icy mountain air. The shock of returning was overwhelming. After the infinite peace of the divine, the weight of my body felt unbearable. My chest heaved, my limbs trembled, and a dull ache radiated from every joint. I was alive. Snowflakes clung to my eyelashes as I blinked against the harsh daylight. The world around me was blurred, distant. A deafening ringing filled my ears, and for a long moment I didn't know where I was. Then a voice, frantic, desperate. "Dorian! Dorian, can you hear me?" Jared. I turned my head slightly, wincing as pain shot through my skull. He was crouched beside me, his face pale, his eyes wide with disbelief. Snow was caked to his jacket, his hands red from the cold as he reached for me. "I thought you were dead," he breathed. His voice cracked, raw with emotion. "You weren't breathing. I tried everything." I struggled to speak, my throat raw, my body sluggish, but my lips barely formed the words. "How long?" Jared shook his head. "Minutes. Maybe more. You weren't moving, Dorian. No pulse, no breath. I thought I lost you." "Minutes?" I had been gone for what felt like eternity. The time I had spent in that place, in the presence of the divine, felt longer than my entire life. How could I explain that to him? He was gripping my shoulders now, his relief palpable, but I barely heard him. Because something else was happening. Something strange, something overwhelming. The world around me had changed. Or rather, I had changed. I looked at the snow-covered peaks, at the sky stretching endlessly above us, and everything was different. The light was richer, the colors deeper. It was as if I were seeing the world for the first time, not just with my eyes, but with something greater. I could feel the mountains, the trees, the wind. Every particle of creation seemed to hum with an energy I hadn't noticed before. It was all connected, all part of something vast and indescribable. The love I had felt beyond the veil, it wasn't gone. It was here, in every breath of wind, in every heartbeat, in every grain of snow beneath my trembling fingers. I had returned, but I was not the same. Jared pulled me into an embrace, his hands gripping my arms as if afraid I might vanish again. I felt his warmth, the steady beat of his heart, and I realized something else. I had been given a gift. Not just the knowledge of what lay beyond, but the chance to live with that knowledge, to carry it into the world, to be a bridge between what is seen and what is unseen. I didn't know what lay ahead. I only knew that my life, my purpose, had changed forever. The descent from the mountain was a blur of pain and exhaustion. Every step sent sharp jolts through my body, a brutal reminder that I was still bound to the physical world. Jared stayed close, his eyes flickering with worry every time I stumbled. I could tell he wanted to ask me what had happened, but I had no words to give him, not yet. How could I possibly explain? How could I tell him that I had seen the fabric of existence itself? That I had stood in the presence of something so vast, so filled with love, that it had unraveled everything I once believed? Even I wasn't sure how to process it. By the time we reached the base of the mountain, a rescue team had arrived, alerted by Jared's emergency call. They checked my vitals, their faces etched with confusion. No broken bones, no frostbite, no visible trauma despite the fall. "It's a miracle," one of them muttered under his breath. I should have felt relief, gratitude. Instead, I felt displaced, as if I was caught between two worlds, the one I had known before my fall, and the one I had glimpsed beyond the veil. The real struggle began after we returned home. For days, I barely spoke. I wandered the halls of my apartment in silence, staring out the window as if expecting to see the divine light break through the clouds. At night, I dreamed of it. Waves of love washing over me, the voice whispering through my soul. And each morning, I woke up feeling like something was missing, like I had left a piece of myself on that mountain. I tried to slip back into my old life, to return to the routine of lectures and essays, but it all felt hollow. The philosophical debates that once fascinated me now seemed insignificant, like shadows on a wall. Theories, words, none of it mattered anymore. I had touched the truth with my own soul. How could I sit in a classroom and pretend that wasn't real? But worse than the disconnection was the loneliness. I tried telling Jared, tried explaining even the smallest fragment of what I had experienced. But the moment I spoke, I could see it in his eyes. Doubt, concern, a silent question lurking beneath his expression. Is Dorian losing his mind? So I stopped talking about it. I walked through the world like a stranger, carrying a secret too immense to share. The knowledge I had been given was beautiful, but it was also heavy. It was a burden I did not yet know how to bear. And then one night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I felt it. The same presence I had encountered in the light. It wasn't distant. It wasn't gone. It had never left. It was waiting for me to act. I didn't yet understand what my purpose was, but I knew without a doubt that my journey was far from over. The weeks that followed were unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was as if I had been reborn, yet placed back into the same world, a world that no longer felt like it fit. Every interaction, every routine, every ordinary moment felt different, because I was different. I could still feel it, the presence, the love. It didn't leave me when I came back. It remained woven into the fabric of my existence, pulsing beneath the surface of reality. Every now and then, in moments of stillness, I could almost hear the voice again, not as words, but as understanding, guiding me, reminding me that I had been sent back for a reason. But what was that reason? I wrestled with this question every day. I tried to return to my old life, but it was impossible. The lectures, the books, the mundane conversations, they felt like echoes of something I had long since outgrown. It wasn't that they were meaningless, but rather that I now saw something beyond them, something deeper, something truer. One evening, I walked through the city streets, watching the people around me, hurried faces, burdened souls, eyes filled with questions they had long stopped asking. They were searching, just as I had been. And then, it struck me. I had been given the answer. Not for myself, but for them. I had to share it. Not through grand speeches or complex philosophies, but through love, through compassion, through the way I lived, the way I listened, the way I carried the presence of that divine love into every space I entered. The revelation I had been given wasn't meant to be locked away in my heart. It was meant to be poured out into the world. I didn't need to convince anyone. I didn't need to prove what I had seen. The truth wasn't in the words, it was in the presence. It was in the way I treated people, in the way I walked through life with the unwavering certainty that we are never alone. And so, my purpose became clear. Not to seek, but to be. To be a vessel of the love I had encountered. To be a reminder that there is something greater, something vast and infinite, watching over us, calling us home, waiting for us to awaken to the truth that has always been within us. I don't have all the answers. I still struggle, I still wonder, but I no longer fear, because I know beyond any shadow of a doubt that we are loved, we are known, and we are never alone. Before we close, I want to invite you to keep walking this journey with us. If this story has spoken to you, if you feel something stirring inside you, don't stop here. There is so much more waiting for you. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now. It's going to be glorious and reveal things you need to hear. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeking. Thank you for believing. Amen.